Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the TGIF Business Networking Hangout. I'm your host, Melanie MacDonald, Brand Identity and Outreach Strategy Consultant. We've got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking about sales scripting for closing the sale. And I'm really excited to have John Jurkiewicz as my special guest today. He is a sales expert. He's been doing sales for a long time. He'll tell you a little bit more about that. And we have been recently collaborating on a project together, a presentation on Sales and Marketing 101. And throughout the process, John has taught me so much about how to hook the audience in such a way that at the end of the presentation, they're going to be coming up to me saying, you know what, I need this help. Where can I learn more? Which takes all the pressure off of me now at the end of a presentation trying to sell them something actively. I love teaching. I love giving presentations. I love being the leader of a workshop and helping people figure stuff out. And I think there's a lot of other people out there like that. But I have a really hard time when it comes to, at the end of that workshop, trying to sell a seat in the next one, feeling like I am that old stereotype of the used car salesman, really trying to push something on you. So I learned so much from John, and I got so excited about it, I begged him to be a guest and talk about this topic on TGIF, and because he's awesome, he said yes. So please welcome John Jurkiewicz. Before we get to him, though, John, because you're our special guest, I'm going to let Roxanne introduce herself first, and then we'll have you start talking, John, and you'll go right into your history and what makes you an expert. So, Roxanne, please give us your best elevator speech.
Well, hello. I'm Roxanne Davenport, and I'm an epilepsy advocate, seizure today. And I'm glad I came in here today because I love to hear John speak about with the just helping you every morning. Well, once we, I can't hear it every day because I do the replay, but it'll bring me up now because I lose my voice every 5 minutes because of surgery I had. So I had to finally come to the reason about wanting to speak now, because a long time I didn't come on the Hangouts. So every 5 minutes if I'm talking, you might hear me lose my voice, but you'll still be able to understand me, and that just makes me want to prove that I'll still come on these Hangouts even though I'm having this problem, because I want to prove to everybody, even though I have epilepsy and getting this to help, I'll still do it. So there you go.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, Roxanne, and we really admire your drive and your will to do it. John, our special guest. Good morning.
Good morning, Melanie. Two things before I launch into my whatever it is. I want to gently correct you. You never have to beg me to be on a hangout. No one has to beg me. I've never met a camera I don't like. Okay, so ask, yes. Okay. Second thing is, okay, I'm going to embarrass Roxanne because for a long time she's really been one of my heroes. She is a person who says, look, I have some challenges in my life and I have some things I have to deal with, and I'm just going to move forward, and I'm going to be cheerful. I am going to be helpful. I am going to be an advocate for other people, and I'm going to show you that even if you have challenges, you can move ahead and you can be really, really effective. And no matter what kind of mood I'm in, I always enjoy talking to her because she is so cheerful. Okay, so I just wanted to share that.
All right, filling my hangout with positivity.
Yeah.
I like it.
Well, and you know, that's a good segue into a little bit of what I'm going to talk about. Okay.
Okay.
Melanie, you were right when you said that there's a stigma that goes with sales. It's kind of the stereotypical person, the guy in the yellow and green polyester suit with his hair slicked back, a big old stogie hanging out of the side of his mouth going, let me tell you what I'm going to do.
Right.
And the moment we get to a point in our presentation that we get ready to ask for money, I'm going to pause here for a minute because I wonder how many people watching today shudder when you talk about asking for money. Well, the last time I looked, the power company that I subscribe to will not keep my lights turned on because I'm so darn good looking. Okay? They like to have that check or credit card once a month where they say, okay, John, you're paid in full. We use money as a means to live productive lives. Right? And so when we, let me put it to you this way. First of all, I believe that 80% of all good selling is listening. Listening to what the crowd, the person, whatever you want to call it, whatever they have, what's their need? And how do you tailor your product or service to their need? Now, I'm going to tell you the most important thing about that 80% of listening is that sometimes they don't need you. Sometimes they may need Melanie, or they may need Roxanne. Because if you're involved in sales today, there is a stigma. And the stigma that goes with it is that you're just here to take my money. Well, you know, that's not the case. Now, a lot of you sitting out there watching might be saying, you know, I'm not in sales. Yes, you are. I'll give you a good example. I got a gas station that sits almost directly across the street from my home. I don't use it. I don't use it because the customer service, because the interior of the store, there's a lot of things that don't line up as to what I need. I drive 1.5 miles to get my gasoline. I can even be on empty, and I'll drive 1.5 miles to get my gasoline because what my needs are matched up with the needs that gas station convenience store provides. Good customer service, cleanliness, decent price, special offers, all kinds of things that fit my needs. Second thing I want to share with you, and I'm often guilty of this myself, there is a real big difference between an elevator pitch and a sales pitch. An elevator pitch says, this is who I am. And you know, if you're young or new to marketing and sales, you know, an elevator pitch is supposed to be something you can deliver in 60 seconds or less. Well, an elevator pitch doesn't necessarily tell me why the things I do and sell are valuable to you. And Melanie said when she introduced me very kindly that one of the things I helped her with was learning to ask questions. Because when you're effectively selling, you're not asking me to buy a darn thing. You're asking me to invest.
Right.
Now, investment means there's a return. See, if I say, buy this social media class, okay? Okay, so now I bought the class. And I go to the class and I write everything down and I do all this neat stuff, okay? There's no vision for me. But now if somebody says, and I'll give you a real good example, Melanie did an exceptional training class on Hootsuite, okay? And I used Hootsuite but didn't use it effectively until I went through her training class. And when I got done, it was like she had given me 3 or 4 investment points where I thought, you need to spend more time with this. You need to refine this because this is a good investment for your coaching and consulting business. This is something that's going to help you. So, now I go off down the road, and this is a really cool thing about how this works, especially those of us who do a lot of virtual sales. Happen to be meeting with another client of mine that says, boy, John, I can't afford to pay somebody to handle my social media and to go to Twitter, Facebook. I just don't have the time. Said, you ever heard of Hootsuite? No. Let me tell you what I'm going to do. Okay, here's a link to Hootsuite. It's self-explanatory. If I can figure this out, anybody can figure this out. Okay? 15 to 20 minutes a day, it's like magic. Right?
Right.
All of a sudden, I start to notice social media traffic increasing because I'm using it effectively. Did I have to make about a 2-hour investment of my time? Sure. But the significant return I got on that investment made me say, this is well worth it. Now, Melanie already had a lot of integrity with me. But suppose that was the first time I'd ever dealt with her. Somebody said, hey, there's this Melanie McDonald person. She lives in the desert, and that would interest me just to begin with. Okay, and you know, she does this really great job of online marketing. You ought to go to her seminar on Hootsuite. Okay, so I went, and I got a lot out of it, and I hadn't known her before. There's instant credibility there. Hey, this person knows what they're talking about, and I look at what they offered to me as an investment. Now, the second part is honesty. Did you notice I said when I was talking about Hootsuite that if I can use this, anybody can? Okay, I know how to spell social media. Okay, I think like an angel brought Hootsuite down to me on a cloud. That's kind of the way it's manageable. Did you also notice that I said I had to invest an hour or two setting it up for my needs? Right? That makes me transparent and honest to the person I'm talking to about the value of using something like Hootsuite. Would you be open to trying this? Well, yeah, I might be. Cool. Let me tell you something. Probably gonna have to play with it for about an hour or so till you kind of get it set up the way you want. Do you like to listen to tutorials? Well, sometimes. Well, there's some good tutorials on YouTube that talk about refining. Right? Now, what's the last thing in the world any of us want to hear? You need to. You should. I'd recommend. Because what does it do?
John, I'm going to butt in for a minute because that reminds me of when I was a kid and my mom would say, you had to go clean your room, and being told I had to do it just made me not want to do it. Whereas maybe I would have been planning to clean my room that day anyway. And that is something that still sticks with me today.
Yeah, we don't like to be told what to do. Especially, you know, I try to stay away from calling myself an expert in anything, because the minute people hear the word expert, you kind of get to the point that you say, oh, well, gee, they think they know everything. So, you know, I think the honesty and transparency is really, really important to you making a good sale.
I think so too. And John, I want to know, because you're so good at this and you've been doing it for so long, share with us how you got started, because you also have a background in HR and psychology. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started into doing the coaching and consulting for people.
We got 4 or 5 hours. No, just kidding, fans. Just kidding. You know, let me say this about human resource management, and it kind of goes against the grain of what happens in the world today. The first word in human resources is human, right? It's not human resource information systems. It's not charts and graphs. It's people. And one of the things that has always fascinated me is about the potential people have. And so in 1999, I left corporate America, okay? And I started my own consulting firm, and I kind of did it a little backwards. I sat down and wrote all the things I wasn't going to do based on the people that, when I was a vice president of human resources, all the people that ended up in my office giving me one of those, let me tell you what I'm going to do, okay? So I said, I'm not going to do all of these things. And that was almost 16 years ago, and I sit back and laugh when I think of some of the things I did. I thought that the first time I came to call on you, and you got to remember the virtual world was in its infancy, the first time I came to call on you, if you didn't buy from me right there and then, I'd sit in the parking lot asking myself, what did you do wrong, John? Why didn't they buy from you? Okay. Second thing is I had a really, really great client who happened to work in a family-owned business. He's vice president of sales. And I was walking down the hall at their company one day, and he said, hey, come in my office a minute, close the door. And he looked at me for a few minutes and said, you have no idea what you're doing when it comes to sales, do you? And I said, no, Jeff, I don't. And this gentleman really opened himself up to me as far as being a resource. And the point of telling you that story, excuse me, is that there are no natural salespeople. There may be people who are a little more extroverted and inclined to spend time talking to other people, interested in knowing other people. There are no natural salespeople. And Melanie, I can tell you and your audience that for about 4 or 5 years, I'd get close to that close, and my palms would get sweaty, and I'd feel like I was beet red, and the room had gone up to about 300 degrees Fahrenheit, and there's this voice in the back of my head saying, these people are laughing at you. They're not going to buy from you anyway, okay? You've been a Hangout on Air host for 3 years,
Yes.
roughly.
Yes.
And I would hazard a guess that if you sat back and looked at your first couple Hangouts on air and then looked at your last couple, you would say, boy, there's a real improvement from the day I started until today, okay? Because you stuck with it. Here's another tip for you on how to become comfortable with all this. Practice. When I first started, when I got, and I had not sold a thing in my life once I left corporate America, thought marketing and sales were the same thing. My psychology background kind of gave me an insight into someone's behavior. A few minutes ago I talked to you about making an investment. There's a big difference, and I said, would you like to buy 3 hours of coaching from me? It kind of has the implication that, okay, well, when the 3 hours is over, as long as your check clears the bank, adios. Would you like to invest 3 hours in yourself that might help your career, might help your life, and the careers and lives of everybody around you? Very few people are going to say no. You realize that's an investment? Yeah. Do you know that good investments cost money? Yeah. Okay. Are you willing to talk about making that type of investment? I made it all about you.
I see what you're doing there, John. You are, instead of, and that's what this is really all about, and what you taught me with the presentation, because like you said, I was one of those people. My last presentation I did over at, shout out to Coachella Valley Women's Business Center. Hi, Kim. I had this great presentation and slideshow, and the audience was there, and they loved it. And in my head, I had it totally planned out how, after the slideshow and presentation was done, I was going to make the pitch for my next workshop. and sell a bunch of seats. And I just totally choked that time. I mean, just nothing came out because I felt like, oh my God, you know, here are all these people that are starting up, and, you know, they need every dime they have to invest in their business. Even though I know that what I'm providing is a good investment, I still like have this sort of empathy and this desire not to ask them for money. That is this inner battle. And wow, you really kind of hit it on the head there. And what you did was you showed me how to ask those leading questions throughout the presentation so that in their heads they're answering, yes, I need to do this. Yes, I need to learn that. Yes, I want to know how to do this. So now I'm not selling them, they're selling themselves. I'm just asking them questions that make them answer in such a way that they are affirming to themselves that they need this service, that they don't know how to do this and they need to learn how to do this, and that learning how to do this has value and will benefit their business. So by the end, then now, instead of me feeling like I'm pushing something on them, they're like, oh my God, I need to learn more. It's a huge difference.
Yeah, and I'll share another little tip with you and your audience that's always a good barometer. Okay, you know, we always do the content part of our presentation, and before we get ready to do the close, we talk about, hey, are there ever any questions? And if you start getting questions that go, how can I learn more about this? Right? What's the next step? And you're kind of, I'm going to get to that in a few minutes. That's a good barometer, because during your presentation, what you want to do is start here and slowly inflate the value of what you're doing. Wow, I didn't realize this was that valuable when Melanie started talking. So now, and I had another mentor a few years ago who once said, the perfect sale is the one where you tell them I want to do this, they sign the contract, and they don't even ask you what it's going to cost. Okay, come back and we'll get started. Okay, yeah. I've never had that happen, by the way. So, but you know,
I have.
Good.
But
good.
It's never been right at first. It's with people that I have developed a working relationship with, that they know about what I'm going to charge them. They trust what I'm going to charge them. I've even had someone write me back and saying, are you charging me enough? Because I think it should be more.
Yeah, good point. You know, you talked about something, talking to people, and I'm going to go back to the first thing I talked about, the 80-20, okay? I met with a brand new client yesterday, potential. We closed the deal yesterday, and I had been meeting with them for about 2 weeks. We'd meet for coffee. And I got to know them, and what I got to know was that they and their partner had just bought a home. And first-time home buyers, okay? Never, sticker shock ran rampant. And they kept going back to the fact that, boy, we bought this home, we're spending a lot of money. And I said, are you going to live in that home forever? And they said, no. And I said, well, so hopefully the day you sell that home, it's going to be worth more than what you paid for it, right? Oh, yeah. I said, you're making an investment in that home right now, right? Yeah. Can you do the same thing for yourself? Can you make the investment in you and your career? Because now, a year from now, after working with me, you're going to be more valuable to everybody in your life. Oh, I never looked at it that way. But what did I do? I found out what was really the issue du jour with them. It was this new home, 20-something millennials, you know. So that came from listening and letting them buy me lunch for 2 weeks. So.
I love those kind of potential clients, the ones that, that want to woo you.
Right.
Now, how did you first make contact with them, if you don't mind my asking?
Very good question. Okay. I did something for them for free. They're involved in a situation where they present programs to the community, and this being summer, a lot of folks don't like to go do public speaking. I know you're a Toastmaster. You might be going, huh? But there's a lot of people just don't want to give programs during the summer.
Well, I live in the desert too, so we're kind of like that here. It's 110 degrees.
So I kind of said to them when we were talking one day, hey, let me come in. Are you looking for a program for August? And they said, yeah. And I said, let me come in, and I want to do like a small business cheat sheet boot camp for somebody that's getting ready to start the small business. And they said, oh, that'd be great, because you know what? We partner with economic development so we can advertise through that. Oh, that'd really be great. Thank you so much. I said, no worries. Okay. So we started working on this, and about 2 weeks ago on a Thursday afternoon, my phone rings, and it's this person and says, hey, would you have an opportunity to get together with me for lunch? And I said, oh, do you want to talk about the small business thing? And they said, no, you know what? I'm really impressed with some of what you're doing, and I'm really impressed with the fact that you reached out to us. This has been a lifesaver for us this summer. I'd like to talk to you about some career coaching, because there's going to be some opportunities in the organization within the next year or so, and I want to be prepared for them. Okay. Number one sales rule, give your best stuff away. It will come back to you. Okay? That's my answer to that question.
Oh, awesome. Sometimes I'm not sure whether it's a dramatic pause and there's going to be
No.
Well, John, this has been such a great conversation. You've already told us so much, and I've been posting out on the event page some of the best quotes and the little takeaways and what I like to call the golden nuggets. And some of those are 80% of selling is listening. And I think it's really a big point, that one, because so many of us are so intent on telling, that we don't have and we don't develop good listening skills. And listening skills are so important, especially because everybody likes to talk about themselves. And that includes your prospective customers, which means that we have to curb our natural tendency to want to talk about ourselves and how great our services are and what we have to offer, and put that aside and ask the potentials about themselves and how great their services are and what they do, because that leads into one of the other things that you said, which is selling isn't about selling, it's about fitting a customer's needs. And so how do you know if you're going to fit their needs unless you start asking them questions and listening to their answers? Then you find out what their needs are, and then you can tell them, not sell them, but tell them how you can meet those needs. So that's the difference. It takes the selling out of selling, because instead of selling, you're just telling. You're listening and you're answering questions and you're telling. So I thought those were some really awesome tips that we got already so far. But as we go into 9:30, I like to let our guests have a chance to ask questions. So Roxanne, let's start with you, because when we go to Brian, he's going to give himself an introduction. He came in a little late. Roxanne, do you have any questions thus far?
Yeah. What can I buy from you?
Anything you want.
Is that it?
No, well, I just had to say that because that was just so good. It's like, let's see, what can I buy? You just get.
I have a question, and I think you might relate to Roxanne. And Roxanne, as you can see, she represents Seizure the Day. She's an epilepsy advocate. She works on behalf of nonprofit organizations. So, John, how can this selling tips, how can that relate to something that's like a nonprofit that has services to offer? They're not selling, they're giving them away, but they need to broaden awareness in the community.
The benefit, the benefit, the benefit. Okay? What's the benefit? While you were busy preparing in the green room, Melanie, and you stepped away for a few minutes, Roxanne and I were talking about, and I won't steal her thunder, I'll let her share. She's had got something amazing happen to her that had a significant positive impact on the epileptic challenge she has in her life. And I said, you know, how great that you're going to be able to go out there and share with other people that suffer from epilepsy the benefit of what you've gone through to help positively impact your life. And that's where I think a lot of not-for-profit people get derailed a little bit, okay? They're not selling anything, because if they're a legitimate not-for-profit, there's all kinds of rules and regulations that govern their existence. Right? But if they want people to rally towards their cause, what's the benefit of rallying towards my cause? In Roxanne's case, that benefit is awareness on epilepsy. And awareness then leads you to, where are some resources? I may suffer from epilepsy. I may have a family member that does. I have a neighbor. I'm completely ignorant about what epilepsy is. And then once she shares the benefit with me, then I can sell in a way. So just real quick, and sales doesn't always mean money, okay? It doesn't always mean an exchange of currency. It means I'm buying into you, and I'm buying into you to the point where I want to make the investment.
You could be selling your idea, your philosophy, getting the buy-in, getting people to jump on board.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Well, and two, it amazes me how I just hold a conversation with a group of people, just like last night. I was with the Business Hangout group with Andrew and Michael, and met a new person that just started with the Business Hangouts, and she said, oh, well, give me your email address, and I want to talk to you because my daughter has epilepsy. And, you know, that's just somebody that you never knew that just found out I did. I talk about it, and she needed someone to talk to. So
right, so you made that connection and are able to offer your sage advice and your resources now. That's awesome.
So you never know.
Yeah. Well, Brian has stepped away from his desk. Brian, come back. Here he goes.
Let me tell you, this is what we were talking about. I'm going to lose my voice, and it's because of the surgery I had in May. So this kept me from wanting to go to come see you and talk. But now I'm going to say, hey, even though you can lose your voice because of some surgery, talk about it anyway.
Yeah, don't let it stop. It's
going to come back in just a few seconds. See? Okay. Now I'm fine.
Oh, interesting. Right. Okay. So and you just keep going and you don't give up, and that's kind of inspirational.
No.
So thank you for thank you for coming in and sharing. Okay, and we're going to go to Brian now. He's back. Brian, unmute yourself.
Is this thing on?
It's on.
All right.
Give us your best elevator speech, your 30-second introduction, and then let us know if you have any questions.
My name is Brian Rowley, Mouse Help at Roselle.com, and I help people get more attention to their websites through social media, blogging, understanding, content marketing, and then I can go into more technical terms if you want. But basically, I help you get more attention to your website so you can have the opportunity to sell your wonderful product or service to all those who finally arrive there. Brian Rowley, Mouse Help at Roselle.com.
Good intro. And do you have any questions about sales? About the selling process, about how you can improve your I don't know, your networking in order to, because I know that you go to a lot of local networking meetings, and what do you do to make the sale?
I don't know.
That's why you're here.
Good reason for me to be here, because I'm getting some really good ideas and pointers, but I think it's finally starting to sink in, and just before I came on to the Hangout today, I finished writing this email, and I was kind of proud of my last line, where I say, give me a call, and we'll discuss the details of your need for PR, which could have just as easily been in terms of, I can help you with your PR, call me, which would be focused on me and what I can do instead of your need for PR, which was the last part of the message. And I said, I'm finally starting to get the idea of how to present the opportunity in terms of, I can ease your pain because it's about you. And it takes, like, I'm pretty thick with some things, and it takes 4 or 5 times sometimes to get through to me, but I think I'm starting to get this. So I appreciate the things John is offering, because if I'm not giving you something that you want or need, then I am just selling myself for money, and it has so little to do with me. It's actually starting to have less and less to do with the money. It's about whether or not I can make you deliriously happy with the service that I provided. And I had one of my proudest moments.
That's a good point, because you want people to be deliriously happy with you, the service you provided, but that's still about you. That's still saying, I want you to be happy with me. And I think what John is saying, the focus is, I can match your needs. I can serve your needs. I can fill your needs. Not I can make you happy with me, but I can give you what you need. Is that right, John?
Yeah,
I mean, and it's a subtle, it's a subtle difference.
Yeah, and Brian, I'm going to tell you, that was a great elevator pitch. It really was, because I sat back and listened to you like I was at a networking event with you, okay? And you hit 5 hot button issues, okay, that every person in business today needs to one degree or another. And then you kind of said, this is what I heard. I'm going to ease your pain. Okay, I may be a techie, but I don't act like one. Okay, so when I sit down with you, you're going to have a level of comfort. I really like that, because if I was sitting across the table from you at a networking event, I'm gonna say, I got your business card. When's a good time for us to talk? Okay.
Right.
Good job. Really good job.
I think that it's a struggle, because it's so easy for us to say, even when we're trying to focus on the other person, to say, I can make you do this and I can make you do that. And that's still saying I. I went to a presentation by someone that Brian is. Her name is Cindy Carpenter, and she is in our regional Toastmasters area. And she is such a good speaker that she actually went all the way to the World Championship finals. She didn't win World Champion, but she got up there, and she went all the way to Malaysia last year to compete in the World Championship finals for speeches. But she did this workshop, and in this workshop, she had us write down the things that we would say, and then change those sentences completely and take out all the references to I and me and change them to you, and rewrite it in such a way that instead of saying I can help this and I can help that, it was you will learn this and you will benefit from that. So it's a subtle difference, and it's a big difference, because like Brian said, it's saying the same thing, but saying it in a different way that puts the emphasis and the focus and all the attention on them, on you. And that's what people like. They like to have the attention on them. Instead of asking them instead of us asking them to give us their attention, we are telling them that we are paying attention to them. And that goes back to that listening.
For sure. For sure. You know, people, Melanie, you're so right. People want to know what's in it for them. How am I going to be better? How am I going to do more? But, you know, I got to tell you, and you asked me a question a little while back about coaching and everything. The most valuable sales tool I learned from a client. and someone I had coached off and on for about 6 or 7 years. And when finally it came to a part where he was transferred to another area by the company he worked for, we sat down and had dinner, and I said, Tim, let me ask you something. Out of all the years we worked together, if you had to sum up how I helped you in one sentence, what would that be? And he thought for a minute, and he said, smiled, and he said, you caused me to look at myself. So a lot of what I took from that is the unique service I provide. And I was with a brand new client last night for their first coaching session, and I said, you know, we could stop right here if you understood this. Everything you have is right in here to begin with. I'm not going to pour anything into your head or heart. Everything you have, what you and I are going to do is unlock it. Okay? Immediate benefit. Okay.
Immediate benefit.
Yeah.
And who doesn't like instant gratification, especially in this day and age where we go out in social media? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a running joke in my house where if we are watching a movie and we have a question about something, oh, if only there was some way I could just look that up right now. You know, in the meantime, I've got my iPad out. He's got his laptop computer out. And, you know, and then we think about 20 years ago, how did people live without knowing the answers to their questions right away? You know, it's just, it's kind of funny.
For sure.
Off a little tangent. But how does that relate to sales? Do people expect instant gratification when they come to you?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, and I don't know if you were going to get into this or not, but I will, is there's a real difference between three-dimensional sales and virtual sales. And where I see people kind of sputtering a little is they try to take the three-dimensional sales technique and apply it to virtual. You're right. In virtual, I want to know right now. Okay, and here's one thing I've learned. I'm going to use your Hangout as an example. Okay, your Hangout is a teaching. Your Hangout is a panel. Okay, and so you invite people in with a special guest, and then you hold conversations. But I go to and I think it's appropriate that your Hangout's an hour long. Okay. But I go to so many Hangouts where they have one person, one guest, and they interview them for an hour, and 30 minutes into it, I'm gone. Right. And I found out that if I watch the replay on YouTube, in that 58th minute, there was something of value, and they lost me and may have lost the sale. Your sales pitch online should be no longer than 3 minutes, and that takes a. I have an editor who watches me periodically. Shout out to Angie Gouladis in Chicago. Okay, and Angie edits everything I write commercially, and she told me when we first started working together that the real key to effective writing is being a poet. Because sometimes somebody wants a 1,000-word article, and you're saying, but I have 4,000 words worth of thoughts, and you have to condense it. Right? So when you go to give a sales pitch, if I was talking to your audience today about using my career coaching services, for example, I got 3 minutes. I got 3 minutes to show them the value of working with me. Anything longer than that, they're going to get distracted with something else. They're going to check their email. They're going to look over at the TV that might be muted. They might start writing down their grocery list. I got 3 minutes to get you online, okay, to get you to want to know more. If I don't get you in those 3 minutes, then you're not going to be gotten.
Right.
You know, or there's okay, and see, we don't see that in the three-dimensional world. I go to as many networking events as you do, and and it's kind of like priming the pump for a well. I don't expect to get business from a new person I meet at a networking event for 5 or 6 weeks, because I've got to build the relationship. When I come on the internet, just like you said, sitting and watching TV, and Joan and I do the same thing. We were watching a movie the other night, and that Billy Burke was in. And Billy Burke, by the way, was Glinda the Good Witch in The Wizard of Oz. Okay?
Oh, okay.
And so we were sitting there saying, what else was she in other than The Wizard of Oz? And I had my Android phone, so I'm going Billy Burke. Okay.
Right.
Thank God for Wikipedia. Okay. And so, but see, we want that instantaneous. We don't have time when
or
it comes to
spans.
or for online sales. Okay. So when I talk with people who say I'm just not selling, say give me your sales pitch. Well, you got about 45 minutes. No, I got 3 minutes. Give me your sales pitch, and that's a challenge. Which, by the way, is something you and I are going to be talking about in future weeks.
Hi, Annie. Yeah, and I gotta say that this brings up a lot of food for thought, because you have started out with your Hangouts that were originally an hour long, and then you went to a half hour. Now you're at 15 minutes, and then you have your other ones, which are your little Monday morning motivations. And I don't know if you're doing those daily now, but those are 5 minutes or less. And so those are just little snippets, and people love them because they're so short. And I, being an old school person who started this, you know, when Hangouts first come out, I'm stubborn. I'm like, no, I want my hour.
But we have different audiences in some respect. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm just going, see, actually, I started a new one 2 days ago, 5 minutes long in the afternoon, called Career Tips, because people said to me, you're not giving us any career tips anymore. So I said, well, what the heck? It takes me longer to set the Hangout up than it does to do it. Okay?
Right.
So I pick a topic for 5 minutes, and I talk about that topic. And then at the end, I've said to people, hey, if you got something you want me to talk about, let me know. Okay? That's my audience. And, you know, look, I don't want to embarrass you. You're one of the heavy hitters in Hangouts. You've been around forever. Not forever. Forever, and for those of you brand new to Google+, forever's 3 years.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Melani's been around forever, okay? And there's other people that have been around for... When I first started doing Hangouts, I told my wife, there's no way I can do what Mia Voss does, okay? Well, no, because I don't have corporate sponsors, okay? I don't have people investing to do all this. And Mia Voss's audience isn't my audience, okay? Your audience likes the 1 hour format, likes the show. I mean, look, Annie might not have been with us this morning if this was a 15-minute show. She wouldn't have been able to make it. But being part of your community and part of that thought process, she knows that, hey, I can come in here at 11:40, 11:48, and I can, Central Time, folks, and I can be part of this.
Right. Yeah. I do, and I do get people that come in at the beginning and then leave early sometimes. I get people that come in midway, and so they come in and out throughout the Hangout, and that's fine. And what I like about this format for what I'm doing is that what I found is that when I'm interviewing people, and especially if I have a panel on instead of like one kind of person featured, there's not enough time to give everybody a chance to talk in a half an hour, and I want it to be an open networking thing, not just an interview show. That's my main thing. Because when I started this, it was before Hangouts on Air were available, and it was just Hangouts. So it wasn't broadcast, it wasn't viewed by the public. The only people in there were the people who actually came in, and it started out just to be an online business networking mixer. And I still keep it that way today, but I bring in guests and I do interview them. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's still a business online networking mixer. We talk in the green room. Everybody gets a chance to ask questions and talk. They can just raise their hand, or you know, we talk in the chat box inside the Hangout, and people let me know if they want to say something. And everybody gets the opportunity to practice their 30-second commercial. And so for me, TGIF is sort of a service to the audience, and I don't try to sell anything during it. And I'm going to ask you something about that, John, because I have had people, especially guests, who have come on in the past and said, why aren't you selling anything? Why aren't you selling yourself? Why aren't you promoting yourself? And to me, just doing this hangout is promoting myself, because it's putting my face out there, it's building those relationships, and it's getting people an opportunity to get to know them and for them to get to know me and to see that I'm sticking around. I don't feel like I have to do selling per se, because I've had enough people come to me, like you said, a few months later and say, hey, you know, I'm ready to do this. Can you help me? So, you know, let me ask you, John, should I be doing a little more selling during these episodes? Should I be doing a little more self-promotion, or is it okay to just bring the information and say, I'm around if you want to contact me?
Typical consultant's answer here. It depends. I think if I came here every other Friday and knew you were selling something, I would probably have a tendency not to show up all the time. But if you had a special program or special event that once every 4 or 5 weeks, that kind of here's what I do if I was your advisor. Here's what I do. If I came up with an event that I wanted to sell, okay, I would start building my programs around that event by bringing special guests on that would lead, get people's interest. And then when you felt the time was appropriate, say, you know what, for the last couple TGIF Business Networking Hangouts, we've talked about a lot of things. I got a special offer for you guys because you've been so faithful to it. Okay, now you have my attention. But if you're selling every week, join Melani's Blooming Business Club, come to my webinar on Hootsuite, I'm going to say that's all Melani wants. But if you're giving me something and then coming back and say, you know what, I'd like to give you more, but that more is going to be an investment, then I know, okay, that I can take it or leave it, and most likely would take it.
Okay. That's a great point. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that does. That answers my question, and I think you're right, because I feel like this is just a salesperson constantly trying to make a sale, then, you know, I don't want to necessarily be bothered, versus I'm going to learn something if I go there. I'm going to learn something. And then this person who is always bringing me something that I can use and that I'm learning is saying now, hey, I'm offering this, then I will have more of a willingness and a desire to want to support that person because they've brought me so much.
Right.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. One of the people that I got to know, a lady by the name of Sarah Arrow, and Sarah was named by Forbes magazine as one of the top 50 female bloggers in the world. I don't know how we got to know one another. This has been like an 18-month process. But here's the thing I remember. When she first wrote to me, I didn't answer an autoresponder. I answered her, and she answered my email. I was like, hey, she did a blogging challenge, and I can't quite remember what it was, but she put something out there, and I wrote back and said, hey, here's my take on this. And she wrote back and said, thanks, John. Okay, you might want to look at this, this, and this. And I thought, whoa, I mean, here's somebody that's, we are not worthy. Okay, she's answering my email. I want to know this person. Okay, you make a real good point there.
Okay. Well, we are already almost at 10 o'clock a.m., so I'm going to go back to the panel here and ask if anybody has any questions. I'm going to start with Annie, if I can get her to come up. I turned on cameraman this morning, and so often when I use cameraman, I can never actually get them to show up in the broadcast. So let me see if I can highlight Annie here. I've clicked show and broadcast. I am trying to highlight her, and it's not coming up. Annie, hopefully you'll show up in a few minutes. If you have any questions, you can exit and come back in, because I've turned cameraman off so that you can do that and come in and share your stuff with us. So if you want to give yourself an introduction, ask a question, please leave the Hangout and come back in, and we'll get back to you. Brian, on to you. Any last words, any last questions, anything you want to share at the end here?
Yes, some of the things that John was saying I've experienced, like the one where you respond to somebody who's put out something really helpful on a blog, like Forbes, for instance. I responded to a lady who posted something on Forbes, and she got right back to me, and I thought, this is fantastic. And so I wrote something else. And I did that a couple of times, and now I'm not so surprised, but I get a response every time I give them back something that says, hey, I was listening, I understood what you were saying, here are my thoughts, or maybe I have more questions about what you were saying. So that's really an effective way of getting some exposure in places where you wouldn't have the opportunity otherwise.
Well, you know what that is that's joining conversations that already exist.
Yep.
And because it used to be, before all this social media stuff, you know, promotions and outreach was all about creating the conversation and controlling the conversation and making it one way. We had advertising in print, in the newspaper, on the radio, on television, and it was all like one way. It wasn't interactive. And then this thing called social media and the internet came out, and all of a sudden it was interactive, and the conversations were happening, and we couldn't control them. So joining them is good, because then you can begin to at least shape them, or at least shape your role in that conversation. So, and for a big company, instead of people talking about you, you join the conversation, and then they're talking with you, which is a big difference in talking about you, because you can help shape what they're going to say about you if you're interacting with them.
I had one question for John. I wanted to make sure I got this quote correct. The real key to being an effective writer is to be a poet. Is that what you said?
Correct.
Thank you. Can I use that? Is that copyrighted?
No, it's not copyrighted. I'll text Angie afterwards and say I gave you a shout out. Don't worry about it.
No, give me the source, and I will give it the correct attribution if I use it.
I will type how you spell her last name in the chat box. Okay?
Well, I'll go even a step further and ask you to put it in the comments under the event page, so everybody can share that. Annie, welcome back. Thank you for coming back in.
I was listening the whole time. I didn't understand why I looked so dim. I didn't.
Well, there's a tool for hosts called Cameraman that sets your Hangout so that when people first join, they're kind of, you know, screened back and they're muted. And that is to help prevent anybody from coming in and showing things they're not supposed to be showing. You know what I mean? Oh. But unfortunately, I can never get it to turn off. Sometimes it will, and it takes a few minutes. Like I had Brian came in, and after about 5 minutes, he finally showed up. But with you, you never did. So then I have to turn it off and ask you to come back in. And you did. Yay! So give us your best 30-second elevator speech and let us know what you do, and then let us know if you have any questions.
I'm Annie Chawakian, owner of Silver Moon Bay, which is a designer hospital gown and accessories company, and we provide a very lovely experience for people who are in hospitals or home care so that they can have something really nice to wear and feel good about themselves as well as comfortable in a situation where they would otherwise feel miserable wearing a regular hospital gown.
Right, so your hospital gowns, they cover you in the back, and they're soft and they're pretty, but they still give access to the caregivers to all the places they need access to when they need the access, right?
That's true.
Yeah. Do you have any questions for what you heard and what we're discussing? I mean, you have a website and you do most of your sales through the website. And are your sales generated more from people just finding your website, or are you going out and promoting and marketing and sending people to the website? What's kind of your most where do most of your sales get generated from?
I have a combination of customers because I also sell stores. I used to sell a lot of stores, mostly hospital gift shops and durable medical equipment suppliers, those kind of stores where you would go in to get like a hospital bed or something. I don't sell those as much anymore, but I still have quite a few who still buy from me. And then I was getting most of my sales from the internet, mostly from running Google AdWords. And that business has really fallen off for me now. So I've started going out into the community and promoting my business and my site and just letting people know that it's out there. And I'm also revamping my website to make it responsive, because the fact that it's mobile friendly but it's not responsive has been a big problem for me.
Okay.
So I hope to get it up and running better by tomorrow.
Okay. Oh, by tomorrow. Awesome.
I am going to revert to doing some AdWords because that's a really good way to get Google to crawl it faster.
Oh, awesome. Well, that's some good tips for people looking for internet exposure and traffic. So thank you for that, sharing that. All right, Roxanne, let's go to you. We're almost at the end here, so let us know if you have anything special that you want to tell us about and any last questions.
Not well. I just say just humble. That's the way I think I talk to people about their problems and try to not make mine greater than theirs. You know, because be optimistic. And I wrote about in the comments how I used to work at Belk's, and not everybody that worked there with me would go to people that they didn't think would buy anything. And I think it was funny that I would go to people that would be in overalls, other clothes like that, and they would be the people that bought the most expensive things.
Oh, funny.
So, that is funny. And so just, you never know.
Don't discount anybody because
Right.
you never know where your next sale is going to come from.
Right.
Awesome. Now, do you have a website, an organization that you represent, or how can people reach you if they want some support?
Well, on Google, it's Seizure of the Day, just like I have it wrote there.
Is that a community?
It's a community, and then my blog is seizureoftheday.com.
Okay, seizureoftheday.com. That's easy to remember. Well, thank you for joining us again. It's always a pleasure to have you. And same goes for Brian and Annie, another couple of regulars. It's always nice to see you two here. And John, you are the special guest. We'll go back to you last. Do you have any promos coming up? Anything you want to tell us about? I know you and I are both involved in something called the Perfect Close Summit.
Right. July 7th through the 14th. Don't have a schedule when I'm speaking or when Melani's speaking, but it is 21 people speaking on different aspects of closing the sale. And if you, was it your last hangout, Melani, or the one before that? That Abby Joseph Harrington was a guest on.
Yeah.
And she is the person who's coordinating this summit. This is really going to be good because you've got 21 people approaching sales closings from a different perspective. Pre-recorded interviews, and I'm sure you'll be seeing more on that. That starts Wednesday, the next week.
Yeah.
Runs Wednesday through Wednesday. My daily career tip is at 3:30 p.m. Central Time. Just a 5-minute career tip, gauged more towards the traditional employment world. My weekly motivation is every Monday, July 6th, 9 a.m. Central Time. Just a 5-minute motivation. And in the Career Corner, Tuesday, noon Central Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Time, Melani's going to be my guest to give small business owners, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs a 15-minute tip on how to social media market more effectively.
Yay, that's going to be fun.
And so, you know, we're going to have an expert every week for 15 minutes giving one little tip on how you can make your business better. So if any of you out there would love to be on the Career Corner 2.0, knock yourselves out. I'd love to have you. And thanks, Melanie, for having me on. I always enjoy your hangout. They're always so well run and so well organized. And that always, I think, as a guest, that always makes you feel so much more at ease and so much more comfortable and relaxed to share your content and everything. So thank you for doing this.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. And, you know, it's funny because last week in my hangout, not last week, but last episode, a couple weeks ago, we had so many technical difficulties. I think anybody who's a hangout host out there probably has noticed that Google is working on stuff, and when Google works on stuff, we get some glitches sometimes. But you know what? That's the price we pay for getting all these wonderful free tools that they're providing to us to use to do this kind of outreach and to make these kind of connections. So we kind of take them in stride. But my guest was someone who was not real comfortable or familiar. He doesn't really use Google. He doesn't use a lot of social. And that was actually the topic we were discussing. What does he do? Because he doesn't do a lot of social. And so how is he getting the success that he's getting and making the connections that he's making? It was an interesting discussion, but we ended up starting like a half hour late because we had so many issues. And he was so kind of flustered and freaked out. That was Reno. Brian knows him. And I was just like, look, don't worry about it. Don't sweat it. It's just, it is what it is. And when you are doing this kind of a show and you're doing a hangout and it's technology based, then you just have to deal with technology issues. You know, stressing about it isn't going to make it go away. Eventually we'll get it done. And so we ended up having a nice 40-minute show. We ran a little late, but it was still great. And he managed to calm down and stuff. But afterwards he was saying, oh my gosh, you know, how do you do this? How do you do this and not get stressed out all the time? But what can I say? You've heard me say it before. Toastmasters, Toastmasters, Toastmasters. It helps us to handle all these things and handle them without getting flustered. So that was a lot of fun. Whew, it's been a beautiful morning. Lots of great stuff that we learned. I'm not going to give away the tip I'm going to share on John's show. You've got to come to watch John's show to hear that. I will give another shout out to the Telesummit. That was an interesting experience. Abby Joseph Harrington, as John said, was the person who is creating and bringing this event. And it's a Telesummit, which means that she took our interviews by phone. So she interviewed 21 people by phone to talk about closing the sale and different things that have to do with making the close. And over the week of July 7th through July 14th, if you register for the summit and it's free, she's releasing 3 recordings each day. So all 21 recordings will be released over the course of the week. And as John said, we don't know when ours are going to come up. But I got to say, as a host, it was really fun to be the guest on something and to be the one that got interviewed. That's kind of a nice change, and it was a lot less stress than being the host because you have so much stuff to do as host. So it was more like a little vacation and a lot of fun. The register link will be in the comments. If anybody's interested, we'll put that information out there for you. And please join me for the next TGIF, which is going to be on the, what's today, the 3rd, on the 17th, the 1st and 3rd Friday every month. I've got some blue and red in my hair. I want to say happy 4th of July to all my friends and neighbors here in the USA. And happy Canada Day, belated. Canada Day was a few days ago, to our neighbors up in the north. Have a great day, everybody, and signing off now. Bye-bye.